Hey guys, I'm Yadi and welcome to my channel Manicure and Murder Convos. Today we'll be chit-chatting about serial killer Harvey Carignan, and we will also take a quick dive on what's the best top coat and base coats to use. So grab yourself a snack or your manicure kit or both, because as you know, we pass no judgments here, and let's get started. So before going into the conversation about Harvey, I wanted to take a moment to talk about top coats and base coats. You might not like what I have to say, however, you have to find the product that best works for you. For me, Sally Hansen's double duty base coat works best for me. What I don't like about it is that honestly, after a couple of uses, it becomes very thick. The same with the top coat that I use, which is the Dries instantly. When you first open it, it's great, but like I said, once you start using it, it does get thick. In order for me to fix that, I just use nail polish thinner. Some people might not like using that. I, however, have zero issues with it, and that is what I use. It works best for me because it doesn't cause nail polish shrinkage. So everybody's nails are different, and you know your body produces certain oils, and that's why I say you have to use what's best for you. Have I tried other brands? Yes. However, like I said, these Sally Hansen's work best for me. So don't be fooled into, oh, use this product, use that product. You have to find products that work for you. They don't have to be super expensive. They can be very affordable. The Sally Hansen's to me are affordable. And I say just try different brands and see what works for you. And that is the trick to base coats. And once you find what works for you, then obviously you continue buying it. If you're someone who likes using different products, by all means, just change it up all the time. But like I said, you have to find something that works for you, and it could take time to find something that does. So anyway, that's all I have to say on top coats and base coats. So now going into our story about Harvey Louis Carignan. So he was born on May 18, 1927 in Fargo, North Dakota. His 20-year-old mother was not married when he was one of like 4 children or something like that. But whatever. When he had another sibling, point is that Harvey got put into the back seat. His mom really didn't care for him, didn't show him much love, and that obviously became an issue in his life. So anyway, at the age of 6, he was very undersized, and he had a twitch to the face. He was also a chronic bedwetter, and he had an imaginary friend named Paul. However, we will not hear about Paul because I know nothing about Paul. One of the major things to know about Harvey's childhood is that he did witness his mom engaging in sexual activities, and every time that she found him, that either he was watching her or that he saw her, she would go on to beat him as disciplinary means. And that really affected his life to the point that he hated women. And there goes on his story. So a little bit more about Harvey. When he was 8 years old, he was sent to live with his aunt and uncle in North Dakota, which lasted a short time, and he was sent back home. When he turned 10, he was sent to live with his grandmother in Williams, North Dakota. Then he was sent to live with another aunt before going back home to his mother. He was still suffering from bedwetting, and he started stealing. At the age of 11, he was sent to a reform school in Mandan, North Dakota for seven years. It's been documented that he stated this is when he had a normal life. Even though it was a reform school, he felt that he had a good life there because he had a bed, he had food, he was warm. So he really appreciated, according to some documents that I read, that he appreciated being there during that time. So anyway, during this time, he was diagnosed with a nervous disorder marked by muscular twitching of arms, legs, and face. Harvey had also claimed, though, that even though he enjoyed his time, that some female employees had sexually abused him, but nothing ever came of that. So after that, he left the reform school, and at the age of 18, he enlisted into the United States Army. On July 31st, 1949, while stationed at Fort Richardson in Alaska, Carignan raped and killed 57-year-old Laura Showalter. She died from several blows to the head. Less than 2 months later, Harvey attempted to rape Dorcas Colleen, but she escaped. She told police she had been approached by an intoxicated soldier at around 7 a.m. Callan and another eyewitness, John Keith, identified Harvey in a lineup. And on September 17, 1949, Harvey was brought into the United States Marshal for the murder of Laura, where he provided officials with a written confession, but there was no mention of the murder. His confession to the murder was oral. So in 1950, he was charged and convicted of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to death by hanging. That should have been the last we ever heard of Harvey. However, his story will go on thanks to a sheriff who felt the need to violate his rights and make false promises to him, claiming, if you tell me everything that happened, you will not be convicted of death. Obviously, he was convicted of death, and because of this, his lawyer was able to file an appeal with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ruled that Harvey's confession was unlawfully obtained and that he couldn't be executed for his confession. So, like I said, in 1951, the Supreme Court overruled his death sentence due to that confession. So what did we learn here is don't make false promises to defendants, because obviously their verdicts can be overturned because of it. So anyway, 4 months later, he was arrested in Minnesota for burglary after he was released, and for assault and attempted rape. He was convicted and sentenced to 2 and 1.5 years in a Minnesota state prison and another 2,086 days in a federal prison in Leavenworth, Kansas. And on March 2nd, 1964, he was released on parole. And he moved to Seattle, where he was arrested on November 22nd, 1964 for second-degree burglary and sentenced to 15 years in Washington State Prison in Walla. During his stay there, he obtained his high school diploma and, GED, and took some college courses in 1968. And in 1968, he was paroled. So Harvey married a Seattle, hold on, give me 1 second, sorry. So Harvey married a Seattle widow shortly after his parole, and I would say it was around 1970, 1971, but their relationship wouldn't last long because Harvey would frequently go out at night for a long drive, of long distances, supposedly to be alone and to think. He would refuse to tell his wife where he's going, where he was going, why he was going there, and that caused the marriage to obviously fall apart, and they end up parting ways. So a year later, he marries this other woman named Sheila Moran and moved in with her and her daughter. However, that same year, he was arrested for parole violation and for suspicion of robbery, and he was sent back to Walla for the year, and his wife divorced him due to sexual abuse. And also, it's important to note that her daughter ran away because he was kind of giving her too much attention, like creepy attention. So the daughter had moved away. So anyway, now going on with the story, that May, young Kathy Miller answered Harvey's advertisement for employees at a service station that he leased. The girl was missing for a month before 2 boys discovered her remains while hiking in an Indiana reservation near north of Everett, Washington. Her body was found naked and bundled up in sheets of plastic. Kathy had been hit with a hammer over her head, knocking holes the size of knuckles into her skull. Detectives in Seattle were aware of Harvey's record, and they basically considered him a suspect for all intent and purposes. But he left shortly after her body was found. Then a speeding ticket from Solano County, California on June 20th placed Harvey in the vicinity where half a dozen women had been murdered in the past 2 years, but there was nothing solid to connect him to the crimes. And he was on his way to Cross County seeking sanctuary for his old familiar haunt of Minneapolis. So on June 28th, in Marley's Townsend, Marlise Townsend was assaulted at a bus stop in that city, clubbed unconscious from behind. She woke up in Harvey's car, still groggy from the blow, but when he tried to make her, I don't want to say the word, but masturbate him, she found the strength enough to save herself by leaping out of his vehicle, his moving vehicle. Police made no connections with the human time bomb ticking in their during the investigations. And on September 9th, Jory Billing, age 13, was hitchhiking rides in Minneapolis to reach her boyfriend's house. And when Harvey pulled up to her and offered her a ride, and obviously, inside the car, unfortunately, he threatens her with a hammer. He forces her to give him oral pleasure, and he sexually assaults her with a hammer. When he's finished, Harvey releases her. She's so humiliated by the events that took place that she doesn't say anything for a long period of time, which who can honestly, blame her? I wouldn't want to say anything, or if I did, but you still feel some type of embarrassment because you are being violated. So anyway, she does say something, but she says something like several months after. So anyway, a year will pass before detectives will see Harvey's MO again in new cases. And on September 8th, 1974, he picks up Lisa King and June Lynch, both 16, while they were hitchhiking rides in Minneapolis. He offered money if the girls will help him fetch another car that had been stranded in a rural area. Once out of the town, however, Harvey stopped the car and started beating June about the head and face. When Lisa ran for help, he sped away and left his latest victim bleeding on the side of a road. So now, moving forward, Harvey meets Elaine Hunley. She's a woman of the church, whatever, and for whatever reason, they start dating, but she quickly notices, something's off about this guy. She tells her friends, listen, I'm thinking about ending things, with Harvey, he's not good. But she ends up disappearing on August 10th. When she was found in Sherburne County 5 weeks later, she'll be a rotten corpse, and her skull will also show evidence that she was beaten with a hammer. An engine failure on September 14 almost cost Gwen Burton her life when Harvey appeared to offer her a ride. And while she's in the car, he basically rips her clothes. He chokes her until she's almost unconscious. He rapes her as well with the hammer, and finally slamming her across the skull with a brutal force before he dumped her in a field to die. Miraculously, she survived and crawled until she reached a local highway where a passing motorist arrived in time to save her life. On September 18th, the day Elaine Hunley's body was recovered, Harvey picked up Sally Versoli and Diane Flynn. He used the old rules about fetching a car, then began to make lewd proposition, assaulting both girls when they failed to respond to command. They escaped when he ran short of fuel and was forced to stop at a rural service station. 2 days later, 18-year-old Kathy Schultz did not return on schedule from her college classes, and a missing persons bulletin was issued by police. Her corpse was found next day by hunters in a cornfield 40 miles from Minneapolis, and as the other cases, Kathy's skull had evidence of being crushed by impacts from a hammer. So, going on. By this time, police in Minneapolis were talking to their counterparts in Washington, and within days, survivors started picking Carignan out of lineups as the man who had abducted and assaulted them throughout the past 2 years. A search of his possession turned up some maps with 181 red circles drawn in isolated areas of the United States and Canada. Some of these circles indicated places where he had applied for jobs or purchased vehicles, but others seemed to link him with a string of unsolved homicide and other crimes involving women. One circle marked the place where Laura Brock disappeared near Coopeville, Washington, and another in Medora, North Dakota, coinciding with discoveries of a murdered girl in April 1973. Yet another had been drawn around the very intersection in Vancouver where Mary Townsend had been awaiting for the city bus and had been assaulted from behind and beaten with a hammer. I want to stop to say that I did watch some special where a detective speaks about Harvey, and he basically says like he wonders how did Harvey basically lure these women in, for him to commit his crimes. And he basically explains that Harvey was known to put out ads, which one of his name is the wanted ad killer. He basically would put ads up like offering babysitting jobs, any type of jobs that women were attracted to. And when they would apply for these jobs, he would meet them like in certain areas. And then he would abduct them and obviously commit his crimes against them. Because this detective, like I said, he wondered, like, this guy's not that attractive. He's very big. He's very, like, hulky looking, like, really big. And he wondered, like, why were these women attracted to him? So it's speculated that he really, it's not that they were attracted to him. It was just that he lured them in with false advertisement. Things like that. He was also known, I forgot like what they said, Harv the Hammer. And that's because obviously he would use the hammer, like that was like his weapon of choice when he would attack these women. He also would violate these women sexually with this hammer. And I didn't read this anywhere, but I believe that the reason that he would violate these women with the hammer is because maybe he was unable to perform sexually. I honestly don't know, but I'm just assuming that because him and this hammer are completely ridiculous and disgusting. So that's just, like I said, that's just a speculation that I am making on my own. So anyway, going on. So in February 1975, Carignan was tried on attempted murder and aggravated sodomy in Gwen Burton's case. He pled not guilty by reason of insanity, claiming that God told him to kill these women. And obviously they also, like I said, pleaded an insanity claim. It's documented that a detective that did interact with Harvey did make mention that Harvey was religious and knew how to quote the Bible better than many ministers that he had known. And he even told Harvey, basically like even the devil knows how to quote scriptures. And he basically told Harvey, like, I consider you the devil. And hey, that's maybe why you can quote scriptures. But it really has nothing to do with it. But I don't know, it's pretty interesting to note that he cowered behind religion and that he had the audacity to quote scripture to fit his needs. But so going on, but whatever, his insanity plea, nobody believed him, and he was found guilty for his crimes, and he was sentenced to a maximum of 40 years in prison. It's sad, but in Minnesota, when his trial was taking place, they can't spend more than 40 years in prison. So he committed these slews of murders and rapes and assaults, and he cannot be convicted more than 40 years, which to me is like, it baffles me. So he is tried for other crimes, and he's sentenced, besides the 40 years, they sentenced him to 30 years for assault for Jory Billings, 40 years for Elaine Hunley's murder, 40 years for killing Kathy Scholes. But that was really just horror stories and more of formality for the court system, because he will serve no time for these murders. It's just more, he's found guilty and it's documented that he's done these crimes, which is just crazy. Like, it shouldn't be that way. And I'm sure that these laws were created more to avoid, how should I say it? To avoid, I don't know, leaving people in jail forever. But some people just deserve to be in jail forever, such as Harvey, because he's not even an animal. Because honestly, animals kill for other reasons, not just because you hate your mom. And, it's also important to notice that he did not kill his mom. He takes out all this anger, and I mean, he shouldn't have killed his mom, but he takes out all this anger on these young, innocent women, even older women. But, like, you take out your anger there. Like, really, you should have gone to therapy. So anyway, point is, he will not be serving, more than 40 years. And sometimes he might get off with this good behavior notion that they have. So, point is, he does turn 81 on Harvey turned 81 on May 18, and he's still serving time in Minnesota's correctional facility, the last that I checked, and that is that. Also, he's been interviewed, and just some fun facts about him. He was 6'2", weighs from 270 to 289 pounds. Like, this is a big man. This is not no little slinky guy just walking around collecting girls. He's really like this big guy. Obviously, we already know that he's divorced. They asked him that, like, hey, are you married? And no, he is divorced. He has kids. He does have 3 kids, but they all have died. One died like of a gunshot wound, one died of cancer, and the other one was of an overdose. One thing that I find ironic is that they asked him, like, what's your most treasured honored? And he's like, to be loved by a good woman. But it seemed to me like you had good women in your life, you didn't value them. You were married and you didn't value them. You even end up killing one of the women that you link up with. Like, so I don't really think he values a good woman. He just says, or would like to believe that he does value a good woman. Then something that doesn't matter, but they ask him, like, hey, describe what's an ideal evening at him. His answer is an evening at home with family. Well, in prison, having a good time is reading or writing a letter and things like that. He did also mention that he has family members that still stay in contact with him. Personally, if he was my family member, I would not stay in any contact with him. But whatever, I guess you can't really say things like that unless you're under the same circumstances. So I don't know. One thing they asked him as well is, what don't you like about people? And he basically said their arrogance and feeling of like superior over other animals. He then also goes on to explain that, he has no fears. He does say in an interview that he considers himself an average, intelligent person, and he feels that if he had been trained or had different luck, that his life he would have been a more successful person, and he maybe would have fallen into the realm of education or business. Let's see, what else did I learn about him? Obviously about religion. He says something along the line like, God reveals himself to the Jewish people and has served them well as a go-between between themselves and the force that creates the laws of the universe. And according to the Bible, God hated almost everyone except the Hebrew and nations, especially those who worship other gods, and such nations as were a bane to the Jewish people, which will make him most dissatisfied with America in our times, where our religion is our monetary values and our God is our money. So he's just basically saying, like, God would hate us, as well, because of, I don't know, like, who we are. But I don't know, this guy's creepy. I really didn't know much about him until obviously I started reading and hearing about him. But I really do think that he killed many more people. Obviously he travels state to state. And he's tried in Minnesota. I think he should have been tried in other states, or at least when he's scheduled to get out after he completes his 40 years, he should then be picked up by another police department and try with deaths of other people. Like, they should really try to link him. And even though he's going to be super old, he's maybe going to be like 90 something years old when he gets released, if he doesn't die, it doesn't matter. You know, you killed these women, you tortured them, you embarrassed them, you did so many harmful things to them. So I do believe that other states should pick you up and, hey, put you through trial. You know, if it's an inconvenience, then maybe you shouldn't have gone around hurting anyone, to be honest, because when you hurt someone, you just don't hurt the person you hurt the extension of that person. You know, they have family and friends that also feel hurt. But, you know, so that's it basically on Harvey. And I hope you enjoyed, you know, the story. About the Essie nail polish that I'm using, this is one of my favorite colors. I, for a long time, did not like using Essie at all. I even stopped using it for about 10 years. They have changed their formula to, you know, to be better. And because of that, I do use them again. But let me tell you, this color is by far one of my favorites. And every time I cut my nails, I have the habit of using that color as the, you know, the first time like that I cut them. I usually use this color. I don't know why, but I love it. It is a great formula. It does hold up well with the tricks that I gave in one of my prior videos, which I'll try to link, or at least leave the name description if you want to know what that trick is. But definitely to me is a must get. It's not red, it's more like an orangey, but it hints towards red, which I don't know, I like. About long nails, short nails, I obviously, there's two times that I cut my nails, because I do like short nails very much. I also love long nails very much. So when I do cut my nails, is one, I had a break and I like to even them or out, or it's summertime. I enjoy cutting my nails in the summertime. In the summertime, you know, you do more things. You're playing. Like, I have children, so I play with my children. You go to the pool, you go to the beach, you know, you're playing baseball, you're playing sports, you're going on runs. And for that reason, you know, I do cut them. And that's why I cut them in this video, because I just, you know, like I said, I didn't want to maintain long nails, but that is when I do cut them. You know, and, you know, habit to take care of even your short nails, because your short nails, you know, they have to remain healthy. If you want them to grow, then obviously take care of them. Well, my loves, that's really all I have for you for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. In the comments below, you can always let me know what murders you want me to cover, if you want me to try any products. And like I always tell you guys, you say no to murderers and yes to murder stories. And let me know how you feel about this color, about the tips and tricks that I give you guys. If there's something in particular you would like me to talk about, don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment, and, you know, that's all I have for you, my loves. And I guess I will catch you guys next week on my next video.